Welcome to the Winnetka Village Council regular virtual meeting for April 21st, 2020. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask that everybody who is on mic, please turn off or mute your cell phones or other electronic devices. And item 2 of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask Trustee Lampier to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, are we on? Am I going here?
Yep. Here we go.
Am I going? Here we go. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Penny.
You're welcome.
3 is quorum. Rob, would you like to check quorum for upcoming meetings?
Certainly, we're taking one at a time. So the next meeting is May 5th. Does everybody plan to be available for May 5th? Which
Yes.
will likely be virtual. Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay, next item is item number 4, resolution number R37-2020, approving and adopting a supplemental rule public comments during virtual meetings of the village board and other village boards, commissions, and committees. Village Council's current rules of public comment do not contemplate the need to have meetings only by audio or video means. Therefore, it is appropriate to establish supplemental rules to provide the standards for making public comments during virtual meetings of the village's body. Our village attorney is here to review.
Thank you. As the village president just said, 2 preliminary procedural issues just to get on the table. First, the only reason that we are allowed to have a virtual meeting tonight is because the governor on March 16th suspended the provision of the Open Meetings Act that requires a quorum of the public body to be physically present. So without that requirement, we were able to have a remote meeting. That order has actually been reviewed legally by the PAC and the AG, and actually was challenged in court in Joliet, all upheld. In reliance on that, we are having the meeting pursuant to the governor's executive order. What the governor did not suspend was the Open Meetings Act provision that requires requires the public an opportunity to comment at public meetings. As the village president said, we already have rules for public comment and procedures, but they do not contemplate they did not contemplate the COVID-19 emergency and the public health risks around public meetings. So the resolution R37-2020 simply provides the procedures for public comment that we're using tonight, where we logistically can't have, where we're not in the same place, and where the public is not able to provide public comment in live fashion during the meeting. It is only in effect during the emergency. These rules, whenever we're back together again, normal public comment rules will be in place. And I think that's all. I'll answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Peter from council?
None here.
Hearing none. Rob, did we have any public comments on this issue submitted via email?
On this issue, there were no public comments submitted.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, one more comment procedurally, because we will be doing roll call votes on votes tonight, since voice votes are difficult to do when you're doing remote meetings.
Well, that'll make it easy for me for a change, so.
Right. No decisions to be made.
Okay, may I have a motion to adopt resolution number R37-2020?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Craig?
Yes.
Trustee Coladarchi?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Carries.
Motion carries, thank you. Item 5 is public comment. This would normally be the time when people in the room could approach the microphone, but tonight, we'll be doing that by reading the emails that have been submitted prior to the meeting. And Rob, you're gonna take care of that for us this evening?
Actually, Kristen has it, on that one. There's one email that came in.
Okay.
This email is from Teresa Lucas at Good Grapes. Will the village be supporting its businesses with a financial relief package, and when will business owners learn about it? The Winnetka business districts were struggling before COVID-19, and now most are struggling even more. While businesses are in the same storm, we aren't in the same boat. Business types and business districts have been impacted differently. For example, most West Elm businesses lost revenue during the 3+ month 2019 construction, only to be more severely impacted months later by COVID-19. Below are examples of financial relief packages from other Illinois government agencies. 1, WillMed sales tax rebate. 2, Elk Grove economic relief package worth $2.8 million through credits to water bills and business license renewal fees. 3, Highland Park economic relief package to those that rent property from the city. 4, Lake Forest sales tax rebate, discussing proposal at April 20th council meeting. 5, Chicago, $100 million. 6, Cook County, waiving various fines, fees, and deferring tax collection. The financial impacts of COVID-19 will be long-lasting. One business closing is one too many. Any business closing negatively impacts the neighboring businesses and sales tax generation. Most businesses need a financial relief package.
Thanks, Kristen. Seeing that we had a little time to study this, I did have some comments I wanted to offer on this situation. I've had 1 or 2 other merchants approach me with a similar request. I think a lot of this has come forth after the PPP money has been distributed, and a lot of people are finding out that they weren't successful in their applications, which is really disappointing. So 2 things. One is I've agreed with everybody who I've talked to that at a future council meeting, I'd be happy to open this up for some discussion and maybe some brainstorming. So I'd like all my colleagues to give this some thought on if there are anything that you might think would be worthwhile to pursue relative to assisting and supporting our local businesses. But as of today, here's the steps we're taking for our businesses. Number 1, the due date for the April utility bills has been extended from May to June. Late payments for all utility bills have been suspended indefinitely. Utility connections for non-payment have been suspended indefinitely. And the village will work with individual customers in setting up payment plans as well. Winnetka issued allowances for restaurants, liquor and wine stores to sell packaged liquors from the curbside, assisting with their ability to sell product. Liz DeChant has been working with businesses directly and providing them with important information along with the Chamber of Commerce and assisting various businesses with loan and grant applications. But speaking more to the concept, which has been out there in several communities, in reviewing this list, I want to point out that the village of Winnetka has never implemented a home rule sales tax. Real estate transfer tax, property tax is flat for 6 years in a row. So in effect, what's happening here is these communities that are rebating sales tax actually have a sales tax to rebate. Whereas since we've never collected a sales tax and putting the additional burden on our merchants and customers, regretfully, from that pot, we have nothing to give because we don't even have a pot to give from. That's not to say that we shouldn't think about ways that we can continue to support our businesses. And I think it's really important to continue conversations on that front as we move through this crisis. Any other thoughts, guys?
Just from my firm's lobbying people in Washington, I know it looks like there's a deal in the Senate for a new wave of funds for the Paycheck Protection Program. And there should be a vote in the House on Thursday, and with any luck, funds should be available under that program soon. This next wave of funds. If we do have any of our local merchants listening right now, this is the program that you should be trying to get in line for. And I'd be happy to talk any through it. It's part of what I do for a living. So if anyone has any questions, you can email me my village email address, and I'd be happy to help as well. But even though the funds in the initial wave have been exhausted, you can still apply, and you should. Get your applications in. Try to work with a bank that you have a relationship with. What will happen if you get approved before the funds are available is they'll approve it and they'll hold it. At least you'll have a place in line. And just so people understand, the way the program works is it is a forgivable loan that you can take out to cover your payroll costs and other running costs. And as long as you spend 75% of it on your payroll costs and get your payroll back to the sort of levels prior to the mess, forgive it. And so it's essentially a grant that covers 8 weeks worth of payroll. It's incredibly valuable. This is the program. This is as good as it really gets in the world of, aid and crisis like this. So if this next wave gets exhausted quickly, it wouldn't be surprising if there's yet another wave. So don't lose hope even if you miss out on that wave. But please, if anyone there is listening, get an application in ASAP.
And that is good advice. I know I've been working with a lot of my tenants and helping them with their applications as well. And, the banking relationship seems to be the key piece to that. And those of you who are fortunate to have good banking relationships stand a good chance of succeeding in these applications. So, any other thoughts? Okay, we'll move on. Any other comments on public comment, Rob? Chris?
There were no other comments.
Thanks. Okay, we're moving on to reports. Trustees, we'll start. In my mind, I always think they want to start with Jack. Do you have any reports, Jack?
No reports.
Andy?
No report.
Don?
No report.
Bob?
Just a brief report. The Winnetka Northfield Chamber of Commerce did meet this morning virtually, the board meeting, and a number of topics talked about. The only point I would make is that the chamber, is working to support, as Chris mentioned earlier, local businesses to the extent that they can. Obviously, this situation has had an impact not only on the merchants but also on the chamber's financial position. And so, they're working mightily, again, to provide whatever support on these programs, similar to what Andy mentioned. And it was, a number of topics were covered, but I just think everyone should know this is a burning issue right now at the chamber level too. So kudos to them and their efforts in a very difficult environment.
Yeah, I think Terry's doing a great job, to be honest.
Yes.
He really is. Rob, anything?
No, I'm good.
Penny?
Just wanted to say happy Earth Day. It's the 50th anniversary, right, of the Earth Day. I attended the virtual Go Green Winnetka meeting last week, and so they're, they had activities teed up, obviously, for Earth Day, and Arbor Day is on Friday. And since those can't happen, we were brainstorming about what we could do to bring Earth Day to the community. So we're working together with Josie in terms of our communications with rolling out our new website and encouraging our residents to do something good for the environment, take pictures, and post them on our new website. So, we're trying to create community at a time when it's pretty hard to get community, and it would be a good way to get our residents onto our exciting new website when it comes out next month. So 50th anniversary of Earth Day is worth celebrating over a month. So I'll get you more information as we develop this idea.
Cool. Thanks, Penny. Village Attorney.
No report.
Village Manager.
Yes, good evening. I have a few comments I'd like to share with the council and the community. As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to rapidly evolve, staff has been closely monitoring and acting on information that impacts the operations of the village and our residents, the fiscal impact on the organization and the community. Based upon our preliminary analysis, and I want to emphasize preliminary, the revenue impacts on the overall budget is approximately 5 to 6%. We're still refining our analysis at this point, and we believe, in looking at the various revenue sources, including utilities, we should have better information for you early next month. Last Friday, we received updated projections from the state of Illinois, and we're currently analyzing that information and reconciling that with our preliminary forecasts. While the revised revenue forecasting is ongoing, staff is also identifying expenditure reductions within operations and the capital plan, all funds that would be commensurate with the reduced revenue projections that we finally settle upon. A couple points to consider. The village is largely depending on property taxes. A full 50% of the county property tax collections occurred in March prior to the financial downturn. From a cash flow perspective, the village is in good shape, with the primary sources of revenue to date being the property tax disbursements that were received in early March, totaling about $7.5 million, along with a strong revenue performance in the first 2 months of 2020. The next property tax allocation will be in August of this year, and approximately another $7.5 million should be realized between August and towards the end of the year. A couple other points to recall: the village has not increased property taxes for the last 6 years, and overall we account for about 12% of the typical property taxpayer's tax bill. While there be impacts and most likely delays with shared revenue from the state of Illinois, the village is well positioned to weather those delays given our strong financial position and the fact that the village is minimally reliant upon sales tax revenue. But I'd like to briefly comment also on village fund balance policies. The village has maintained very conservative fund balances in its major funds and has maintained a position of financial strength. Winnetka has maintained our conservative fund balances for 2 primary reasons. First, to accumulate funds to pay for large capital expenditures, and second, to ensure the village weathers periods of financial uncertainty. To date, the village has approximately $12 million in additional fund balance in the general fund and is appropriately reserved in the other major funds going into this crisis. This is effectively our safety net. We all know that there will be significant financial impacts to the state of Illinois, the Chicago area, specifically our region, and we'll be closely monitoring major revenues and expenditures on a constant basis, which will hopefully allow us to adapt quickly as conditions warrant. For the next step, staff will be presenting our updated financial analysis with the council in May, and later, when the annual audit is presented this summer, we propose to have a mid-year financial check-in with the council at that time as well. A few other things that we know. On the expense side, the additional incurred by the village as a result of the virus are expected to be manageable at this stage compared to the budget as a whole. The village is seeking federal reimbursement for most of these costs, and we'll continue to seek funding opportunities not only for the village, but for our local businesses through the federal programs, and we'll continue to work with local businesses to help them access any and all funding opportunities that are available. Winnetka, along with the Northwest Municipal Conference and the Illinois Municipal League, is urging U.S. legislators for direct, unrestricted federal funding to local governments, regardless of the population of the community. For the village's other minor funds, we expect minimal impact other than the motor fuel tax fund, and we will be adjusting expenditures on this side of the fund as well. So staff has a lot to do over the next couple of weeks, but we plan to be presenting to you an extensive analysis as we can by the first part of May. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Rob?
Bob, will this have any, I'm trying to think of in terms of pensions or things like that, is there any indication that there'll be a immediate impact and a long-term impact yet, or is that just too hard to determine?
Well, for the pension funds, the extent of the impact will largely be determined on the extent of the stock market can rebound by the end of the year. And we should note that all investment gains and losses in the pension funds are smooth on a 5-year rolling basis, So we'll have to evaluate that as we get into say, at the end of the third quarter of this coming fiscal year in terms of the impacts into the next fiscal year. But it's really going to depend upon stock market performance between now and year end.
Do we have obligations to make up any shortfalls, or if the market's down for a long term?
There'll be every year, Jack, there's an actuarial study, and that actuarial study will determine what the village's contribution will be for the coming year, and that data will be forthcoming.
So we have a potential impact down the road in terms of us having to come up with some kind of a contribution.
There's an annual contribution, and like I said earlier, if you have a bad year, it is smoothed on a 5-year basis. So those any losses will be smoothed out over 5 years. And the other side of it is, if you have a strong year, those gains are also smoothed on a 5-year basis as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Rob, excuse me, it's Bob here. On Jack's point, following up on the pensions, for your May review, if you could possibly procure the pension returns for the first quarter.
Sure.
Put that at the IMRF, since our is going to be ultimately absorbed by, not IMRF, but by the new board or whatever. But I'd be very curious on what the returns were for Q1.
Absolutely. We can easily pull that together.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll move forward. Thank you. Item 7, approval of the agenda. Does any trustee wish to move an item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's a second. Okay, roll call vote.
Trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
Trustee Kreip,
Yes.
Trustee Swerk,
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
Trustee Apatow,
Yes.
Trustee Lanfair.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay. The consent agenda, I will ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of the village council meeting minutes for March 3rd, 2020, regular meeting. Approval of the minutes March 10th, 2020, special meeting. And the minutes of March 17th, 2020, emergency meeting. Approval of the warrant list dated March 13th, 2020 through April 2nd, 2020 in the amount of $1,268,518. And the warrant list dated April 3rd through the 16th, the amount of $450,357.97. Resolution number R30, 2020, Village Sanitarian Contract for adoption. Resolution number R31, 2020, purchase of a police vehicle. Resolution number R33, 2020, sidewalk and curb replacement program. Resolution number R35, 2020, approving a Class B liquor license for Lakeside Fresh Market Incorporated for adoption, and approval of the annual outdoor seating permits.
Right. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote?
Trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
Trustee Apatow,
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
Trustee Lanfair,
Yes.
Trustee Swerk,
Yes.
Trustee Kreip.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9A, ordinance number M5 2020, 717 Elm Street, Blow Dry Boutique. The special use permit is up for introduction and possible adoption. The subject ordinance was drafted in response to an application for a special use permit to allow a hair salon on the ground floor in the C2 Commercial Overlay District. David will run through the details on this. Director of Community Development, David Schoen, will review. Come on in, David.
I just promoted David to panelist. So who will be joining us momentarily.
Good evening. Yes, so Blow Dry Boutique is an existing Winnetka business. They're currently located on Lincoln, on the west side of Lincoln, north of Elm, in the same building as Beat Street Toys and Adelides. They are going to move into a building on the north side of Elm, east of Lincoln Avenue. They're moving in the same building with the Winnetka Dental Group, Dr. Sikarsky's office. The use is located in the Commercial Overlay District. Since 2019, when some amendments were made to the Overlay District, beauty salons now require special use approval, and that is why it's before you this evening. They are moving into a space that they will be remodeling. They'll be increasing the number of stylist stations from 6 to 8. And they hope to get started once council approves the special use permit. The Plan Commission reviewed the special use in February. They had a little discussion on it. They supported the move of this local business into a new location on Elm Street, and they unanimously recommended approval by a vote of 6-0. So this evening, you have introduction on your agenda, as well as the possibility to waive introduction and consider adoption.
Right. David, I might want to add to it that originally I wasn't looking to handle any zoning issues while we were meeting virtually, but the owner made a fairly impassioned plea for the opportunity to get started on their construction while businesses were generally shut down, so that they could have a better potential for opening for business once things began to return to normal. So I felt there was some expedience on this one, and after polling trustees individually, it felt like the right thing to hear this one at this point in time. So does anybody have any other questions for David?
I'm just curious, I think I see that they're gonna have the business figures, it'll have 4 of the 8 chairs busy time. Do you know about how many people they think they'll have per hour, or do they have a rough estimate?
Now that was an average number, so that there will be peak periods when they will have more than 4 stylists and 4 clients in there, but that was their average number.
And because we don't have the notes or the transcript from the Plan Commission, I assume they talked about parking. I'm going to guess that that's not a problem over there.
Yeah, it was, the commission briefly talked about it and didn't see it as an issue in this location.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Hey, hearing none. First question is, how do you all feel about waiving introduction and going to adoption? Does anybody have any feelings one way or another?
I would waive the introduction.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. Yeah, it'd be great if they could go ahead and build that.
I agree with that, yes.
All right, so I guess the first order of business is to have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number M5/2020.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Caladarchi?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Kreip?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
That motion carries. Now, may I have a motion to introduce ordinance number M5/2020?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Kreip?
Yes.
Trustee Caladarchi?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item B, resolution number R32/2020, Bull Parkway Stormwater Pump Station. This is up for adoption. Bids for the project were reviewed and rejected last year, and staff was directed to rebid the project in 2020. Here to review the new bid results is Public Works Director Steve Saunders.
Thank you. Good evening. Can everybody see and hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. So the agenda material for the Bull Parkway bid starts on page 113 of your packet. The Bull Parkway area is a low-lying subdivision kind of at the far northwest corner of the village. Contains 18 homes, and then there's another 6 homes on the west side of the subdivision that are situated higher, and so there's runoff that comes from those properties into the Bull Parkway subdivision as well. There's 2 storm sewers that drain the area, and right now they're at an elevation. They drain into the ditch in the Forest Preserve, the west end of the village. They're at an elevation that when the Forest Preserve ditch rises, the tailwater from that ditch prevents the water from draining out of the Bull Parkway neighborhood. And in severe cases, the water picks up into the backyards and up against the homes and threatens structural damage. So we did a drainage study some years ago. The recommendation was to install a small pump station to drain the subdivision and actually kind of reverse the drainage pattern and bring it into the new Tower Road storm sewer system. So we bid the project next year at kind of an unfavorable time for bidding. It was a midsummer bid. And we felt the prices came back high, and so the council ultimately rejected the bids. The idea that we would rebid it again this spring. We opened bids on March 5th. We've got 3 bids. They're summarized on page 113 of the agenda. Detailed bid tabulation at 132 and 133. The low bid was submitted by MAG Construction, Highland Park, for just under $717,000. When we had our engineer do the regular due diligence on the bidder's qualifications, there were 2 concerns. The first being that the village has a requirement that when a general contractor bids on a project, they have to self-perform at least 51% of the work with their own forces. Based on MAG Construction's list of subcontractors and their construction plan, they will be constructing quite a bit less than that requirement in our bidding documents. And second, we require demonstration of successful past project. And MAG's experience is really related in the pump station arena to station projects and not construction of pump stations. So we looked at the second low bidder, which was Boulder Construction. The bid was only $2,158 higher than MAG's bid, but Boulder was going to be self-performing the bulk of the work, and they have significant experience in storm sewer and pump stations. So we recommend that forego the bid by MAG Construction and award the project to Boulder Construction in the amount of $718,851. And then over the line item budget for the project in the stormwater fund, but it's well within the parameters of the stormwater fund itself. And there's some opportunities to manage the project and hopefully try to bring the cost underneath the bid amount. So we would recommend proceeding with awarding the project to Boulder Contractors at this time.
Okay, any questions for on this item?
Yeah, I got 2 questions if I can talk. The original engineer's estimate was $416. How do you explain the big difference on that to the actual bid now?
I think the biggest difference is the actual area where the project is going to be built. It's inside a developed residential neighborhood. The pump station's at the north end of the subdivision. It's right up next to the property line. There's a swimming pool just on the other side of the fence. One of the things that when we talked to Boulder Contractor about their price, when they did last summer, they were concerned about the earth retention needed to make sure the swimming pool doesn't move, and then just access to that site through develop residential lots is the primary difference.
And their bid last year was how much?
Their bid last year was $728,000, so we saved about $10,000 by rebidding it this year, which is not what I hoped to save, but it's better than a sharp stick in the face. So.
Okay. All right, thanks.
How did the engineers estimate, I mean, I don't know how they're done, and so I'm not clear on how there can be such a huge difference between the estimate and then the final bid price. I would think, wouldn't the engineer's estimate take into account some of these problems so that they're more meaningful, I guess?
Yeah, I can speak to the way when I estimate projects, we do detailed quantity takeoffs off the plans, and then we've got for the projects that we design in-house, we've got a very long list of bids for street projects and bridge projects and other things. We have, I think, a pretty solid group of unit prices that we can use. I think Char Green probably used their catalog of unit prices. Their pump station projects that they design are typically larger, typically in more open areas. And so they were, if you look at the bid tabulation, you can see that they were under the actual bid cost on a number of the items. So I think they just kind of underestimated the difficulty of working on the site, and then probably some of the fixed costs on a smaller project like this would tend to overwhelm the variable costs on a larger project. So I think that's probably what happened there. We recognized when the bids came in last year that the project was going to cost more than HR Green's estimate, and we adjusted the budget in the stormwater fund accordingly.
It just makes it when you're a non-engineer and you're trying to figure out whether or not the bid is, is it what? Because I look at it and I go, wow, that's not quite 150% higher, but it's a pretty big difference. Do you feel that there's anything wrong with the bid that we're receiving? I mean, taking into account, maybe businesses now want to rebid, and will come in closer to the engineer estimate. I don't think that's the case, but do you think there'd be any reason to do that?
I mean, the numbers are out on the street, and so you see a little bit of that effect when you look at the three bids that we got, and there's a very tight spread between the three. The bids that we got last year had a little bit more of a spread, and I think rebidding, we might see a little something. We might also have companies that are not interested in bidding if we go out for the third time. So I wouldn't recommend it at this point.
Even taking into account the COVID virus effect on the economy.
Yeah, I don't know. Given the fact that public works construction is not really subject to the governor's order, and there are still projects that are moving on. I'm not. We could take a crack at rebidding it. There's a chance that we could get a lower number. There's a chance that we could get a higher number.
Usually when I pay somebody to give me an estimate, whether I'm going to go forward on a project or not, and it comes in nearly double, I usually ask the person who I paid to give the first estimate where the discrepancies are and why. Have we gone back to engineer? And I know we talked the bidding companies, but this is apples and oranges, like two different projects.
Yeah, so we had that discussion last year when we did the project out, and the differences were primarily in the site access conditions, and I think they probably underestimated some of those items in the pump station detail itself. I think they blew the estimate. I don't think that there's any way that we would get a contractor to build this project for what they estimated. after speaking with the contractors. I just don't think that was a realistic, number. And that'll, of course, affect our, desire to do work with this engineering firm going forward. But I think it's just not a good, estimate. And I think the bid numbers actually reflect much closer to the value of the work, especially by the fact that they didn't move a whole lot from when we did it last year, and then the tight spread from the three bidders that we got, they all assigned a similar value to the work. So I think that's a reflection of what the market was, at least on March 5th, for the actual value of this project.
And you know, I brought up the cost issues just to clarify it, of course, for the people listening. And bidding to the third time, I don't think is going to help. Obviously, we got basically now 2 rounds of bidding is fairly close together. I'm comfortable moving ahead. So,
Well, the other thing to remember is that the people who need the flood relief from this project have been patiently waiting for an additional year now. And, you know, that's something we have to consider too, is that there is a problem over there, and this is going to definitely improve their condition. And, you know, it's a project that we had promised them several years ago. And then, you know, I think after 2 rounds of bidding, my experience is just what Steve said, that it's just a bad engineer's estimate. Understand that that's where it's at. Steve, what did you carry in the budget for this?
We have $650,000 in the fund for this particular project, although the stormwater fund has significantly more than that for other projects. So we can carry it within the budget, but this will be a little bit over on this particular line item.
So you disregarded the engineer's estimate anyway when you were budgeting it year round, right?
Yeah, once we saw the bids that came back last year, we increased our budget significantly to account for what we thought the market would be.
And there is one thing that I found interesting about the bid results, Steve. That Mag Construction, there were 2 items that they were really low on, and the only thing I was wondering is they both seem to be related to pump equipment, which means maybe they found a manufacturer or a supplier who was bidding a lot less. I'm talking about item 1.12 and on the upper sheet is item 1.14 on the lower sheet, the electrical control set. I mean, the 2 other bidders were carrying well over 100, 105, and 193 for the successful bidder, and Mag was carrying 50. That's a huge difference.
Right.
So it might be worthwhile just, you know, before we dot the T's and cross the I's, maybe to find out if they're. I know when I used to do a lot of public bid work, is sometimes there's an equipment manufacturer out there, and some guys get the number and some guys don't get the number, but that's a big spread, particularly on the control instrumentation.
Yeah, we can talk to them about that. One of the things you have to be a little bit careful between comparing line items and bids is you're never sure where people vary things like trucking and profit and mobilization and other things. So, but we can poke at that with Boulder County.
Yeah, I didn't look at his mobilization, but it might be 3 times higher too, so.
Hey, Steve, last year, who were the 3 companies how many bids did you get? You got 3, was it the same companies?
I know DeMayo and Boulder both bid, and I don't have the last year's bid tabulation in front of me. I can't remember the other company that's bid on that.
And they're both local companies?
DeMayo's in Elk Grove, Boulder's in Cary, Mag's in Highland Park.
Is there anybody that's, I mean, I hate to say it, we're in the North Shore, are there Indiana companies or Wisconsin companies that would actually bid against these types of people?
Maybe for larger projects, we've had companies from the tri-state area. For projects like this, it's hard to pull them distant location.
I was just curious also if there's any, I know that they've been waiting, but I think a lot of work has already been done to Bull Parkway, at pretty great expense. Is there any benefit to waiting for some of this other drainage stormwater stuff to be done? Since we're already gonna be having big machines in and doing other work? Is there any, I mean, I'm just trying to be mindful of the dollars.
No, so we did the Tower Road project, in 2015. And then this is the last piece of that Northwest Winnetka, so there's really nothing else that has to be done up in that location. This is the last piece up there.
I was just talking about when the drainage, the big water project is done, drainage projects.
That won't affect this area. This is a separate sub area that goes into the forest preserve. So the southern and western projects on the golf course and such won't really affect Bull Parkway. They're separate.
Yeah, I think we've shown the village that we've, obviously by rebidding it, we were concerned about cost and finances and approving bids that were not crazy. But this time around, I think we got enough proof, I think, that we need to go forward and not let them wait any longer.
I think the explanations for why there's such a difference between the engineer's estimate and the current bid shows that we are getting the best deal we can. And my concern was obviously with the economy, with everything happening like it's happening right now, we want to show the residents that we're not being sloppy with money, and it looks like we're not being so.
Okay. All right, let's wrap this up. Any other final comments or thoughts?
They've been waiting a long time. Thanks for water fees, so I'd like to see it get done.
Rob, any comments from the community on this, from emails?
No comments were received.
Okay. Give it a shot here. May I have a motion to adopt resolution number R32, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Quirk?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes?
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier?
Yes?
Trustee Caladarchi?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Good job. Item C, resolution number R36, 2020, IT upgrade. The village currently uses Microsoft Office 2010 software suite. The 2020 budget contains funds to upgrade to a more current and secure software package. Here to review is Finance Director Tim Sloth. Tim?
Good evening. We are looking for council's approval to move forward with a project that significantly upgrades key components of our information technology infrastructure. In particular, we are looking to upgrade our current Microsoft Exchange 2010 server, which has reached the end of its usable life, and transition to the Microsoft Office 365 cloud-based platform. Microsoft Office 365 is a subscription service that provides users with productivity applications such as Outlook email, Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. Currently, these applications are hosted locally on a dedicated Exchange server, owned, maintained, and administrated by the village staff. By moving to Office 365, these applications will be hosted in the Microsoft Cloud. The quote for Office 365 portion of this project is $33,942, which is within the $42,000 we budgeted for this project last fall. Since approval of the budget, though, staff has determined that in order to proceed with the 365 project, we need to upgrade a series of existing servers to effectively maintain a safe network environment. Therefore, staff is proposing to upgrade 4 servers at this time, and these 4 servers are utilized as basic file servers, as well as file domain controllers, which is a server that responds to security authentication requests within a computer domain. Current best practice is to actually separate the domain authentication activity for the servers from the file storage component, which is why we are required to purchase 7 servers at this time. So this component, the server replacement component of this project, totals $49,066.20. And finally, this resolution authorizes us to utilize Prescient Development, the village's contracted information consultant, for additional consulting resources in order to migrate to the new platform as soon as possible. And that component of the project totals $10,400. So in total, we're proposing a project that will cost $93,408.20. But as I mentioned earlier, we budgeted $42,000 in 2020 specifically for upgrading the Office 365, and we propose funding the additional amount by deferring a content management project that was budgeted at $100,000. So this entire project is fully funded out of the data processing fund, and by deferring the content management project, we achieve approximately $50,000 in total budget savings for this entire project. So at this time, I will answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, I have one. What is the content management system that we are postponing? What would that function do?
That project was the Laserfish content management project. So that was a project that would take, digitize a lot of the village's files and centralize a lot of the file management system of the village.
So, Tim, just to confirm on this, the summary of the agenda item, it says that staff is proposing to use a portion of the $100,000 that was budgeted in 2020 for the content management system. What you're proposing is to fully eliminate the content management project. So the 50,000 addition is going to flow right through as a positive in this year's savings in this year's budget.
That's correct. So we would reevaluate that project as part of the budget.
Okay.
And this is a subscription service, so after the first year, there's still yearly subscriptions to keep the service going, correct?
That is correct.
And do we have that dollar amount?
Yeah, it would be $33,000. It would be the same price. It would be $33,900 on an ongoing basis for the subscription.
And I think there's like 100 users or more than 100. Is that possible?
150 users, correct.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure that that's kind of clear to the public. Thanks.
Is that 30 whatever thousand, is that over and above, or was this something we're currently paying anyway from a licensing fee?
So currently, the most recent upgrade to the Exchange server was back in 2013. At that time, we upgraded to the 2010 Office platform and Exchange server. And at that time, we made the decision to purchase those licenses outright. So there was minimal ongoing cost. So if we were to, as part of our analysis, we analyzed whether we wanted to continue hosting in-house or move to the cloud subscription-based service. So the cloud on an annual basis is about $33,000 a year. Had we hosted, it would have been an upfront cost of approximately $80,000 in upfront costs, but lesser costs going forward. But we made the decision based on the enhanced security aspects of having Microsoft, host the email system and these productivity apps, that it made more sense to go that route.
And so with this, I've had to do this a lot in the companies I've been in. Is there any more dominoes as far as servers to go? Is this kind of it? 7 servers, what we've upgraded, is there anything coming on the heels of this next year that we're gonna have to redo?
In terms of this specific project, to get to Office 365 and update that project, this should be it.
Okay. Is that a contract that we're signing? $3,000 a year? What is that? Is that just year to year?
It's
Microsoft or what?
It's a contract for the licenses with Microsoft. It holds prices for 3 years, but we are only committed 1 year at a time.
Hey, Tim, does that also include all of the Microsoft apps? I believe it does, right?
Yeah, so it includes your basic computing apps, your Excel, your Word, your PowerPoint. It also includes access to the Teams functionality, which has similar functionality like this WebEx meeting that we're on now. The Teams functionality would provide similar services like that, and also integration in terms of sharing documents. If I'm working on an Excel project, having another team member being able to edit directly in my project versus necessarily emailing that to that team member and then having them. I mean, there's different kind of productivity functionality with the Office 365 that's beyond what we have in our current environment.
And that also includes all the backups of the emails and all that too.
Correct.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, we can move forward then. Moving forward here, may I have a motion to adopt resolution number R36, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Abbott?
Yes.
Trustee Swart?
Yes.
Trustee Wright?
I have to abstain on this one. This is a client.
Got it. Trustee Alarchi?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Hey, motion carries. Thank you. Moving along here, item number 10, motion to extend the duration of the declaration of emergency. Village Attorney Peter Friedman will review this particular item. Go ahead, Peter.
Peter, you're muted.
Apologies. As you all know, on March 17th, the last time we met, after you adopted code amendments to update our emergency powers provisions of our municipal code, the village president issued a declaration of civil emergency. That declaration was very limited in the exercise of the power, and it dealt solely with emergency procurement of goods and services needed to respond to the COVID-19 emergency, emergency staffing protocols under our collective bargaining agreements, and directing the staff and others in the village to enhance our intergovernmental cooperation in response to the public health emergency. Under the law, that declaration was only allowed to extend for 7 days unless the council adopted a motion extending it, which the council did at that meeting. That extension was until the adjournment of the council's next meeting, and tonight is that next meeting. So without any action of the council, the emergency declaration will expire. And our recommendation is that if the council desires to extend it, we simply adopt a motion, it needs to be seconded in roll call, that would extend the declaration until the adjournment of your next council meeting. You could always extend it beyond that, or you could not extend it at all, or for a shorter period. But logistically, this is the council granting the village president authority. So it makes sense that each time you meet, you have a check as to whether or not to continue to extend the emergency declaration. Happy to answer any questions.
Fire away.
Nothing's changed, I take it, since our discussion back on March 17th. And I know that the facts have changed, but legally speaking, and we're not expanding or contracting anything in particular here.
Right. The emergency, the village president has not exercised any additional authorities under his emergency powers since March 16th.
Is there any rationale in terms of lining it up relative to the governor's declaration of shelter in place or whatever?
Yeah, everybody's asking that, so it's a good question. Our best guess is, it's an educated guess, I think, that the governor's stay-at-home order is not going to simply disappear on April 30th. In some shape or fashion, it's going to continue into May, whether identically or with some tweaking. So it really, the emergency is going to continue. The governor is not going to revoke his emergency declaration.
Right.
And the emergency declaration is what triggered the council to take action. I mean, remember, at the time the village president issued the declaration, that was before the governor issued the stay-at-home order.
Got it.
So it's really the emergency declaration that is the reason that the emergency powers exist, not the stay-at-home order.
Got it, okay. Yeah, I mean, this proposal makes sense to me.
Bob, you had a question?
It was the same question Penny had. Thanks, Chris.
Anybody else? Okay, no other questions? Let's see what we got here. May I have a motion regarding the duration of the declaration of emergency? Is that good enough for you, Peter?
Well, it would be a motion to extend the March 16th declaration of emergency to the adjournment of the village council's next regular, special, or emergency meeting.
I'll make that motion. Move to extend the declaration to the adjournment of the next village council meeting.
Peter, I think you said March 16th, is actually March 17th in our.
Oh, March 17th, thank you, yep.
Hey, Andy,
I'll second Andy's.
we got a motion and a second. Roll call vote, Rob.
Trustee Kreip,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi.
Yes.
That motion carries, thank you. All right, moving along here, old business, we have none. New business, none. Appointments, none. And session, that'd be interesting, but we have none. So we move to adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Another roll call vote, Rob.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Kreip,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yep.
trustee Apatow.
Yes.
Motion carries, we stand adjourned.